G'day Bomber fans, we're ending the mini ranking series here. We've done the forwards, backs and mids. We've talked about 50 odd players already and now it's time to end out with the rucks. I know what you're thinking, why would Essendon possibly want to draft a ruckman? We have 4 already on the list. Well, remember, all 4 of those players are out of contract next season. One is a sought-after free agent. One is 90 years old. So it's not completely out of the question for the Bombers to potentially take a cheeky ruck in the 2024 draft. So we're going to talk about the best in it this year. It's not a terrific year for the pure rucks, so let's get through it today. Just the 7 as opposed to the 10 from my other videos. So a tiny bit shorter than usual, but let's get right into it. Starting with a guy I really rate. I have him in my top 20. Alex Dodson from South Australia. He is as pure an athlete as anyone, shown by the fact he was tossing up between AFL and pro basketball. Tough choice to make because he's a star in both. He won a junior gold medal recently in basketball for Australia. Dodson is 201 centimeters tall. He's probably still growing as well, but that size is pretty deceiving because he's actually very good on ground level. They call him a 4th midfielder in SA. He goes up for hitouts and then he follows it up with his agility. He's agile enough to be a force when the ball's on the ground level. It's a massive skill to have for a ruck, which is why I rate him so much. I can't really remember many rucks being as good below their knees as Dodson in his draft year, and I guess that's the basketball craft helping him out and coming through. He still has plenty of work to do. I don't trust him heaps with ball in hand. He's agile but not really a force anywhere other than the ruck. If anything though, it just enhances his upside a little bit more, the fact that he can still improve on so much. I can see this guy being a real player down the track. This is the type of guy that will draw complaints if we pick him up now in the draft, but in 5 years time we're going to be saying, why didn't we take Dodson instead of so-and-so? I can see that happening. He isn't a player we need, but down the track I reckon he could be a player we want. I still think there are much better options for our team layout in this range of the draft, but this is a very good ruck, the best in the draft in my opinion. From South Australia to West Australia, Kayle Gerreyn. So Dodson is kind of your athletic ground ball follow-up ruck. Gerreyn is actually a very different option, and in many ways more enticing. He is a much more pure stoppage ruck than Dodson. He's very physical and very intelligent with his stoppage work, which is needed because he's a tad smaller at 199 centimeters. But around the ground, this guy is elite. This is where he's, I guess, draws so much enthusiasm. He's a really good ball user. This isn't a Sam Draper, so you don't need to have merit running through for a hand pass. This guy genuinely hits targets despite his size, and despite his size, he gets real power and penetration on short kicks, and that isn't very common in 2 meter tall players. That makes him a real threat up forward too. You can draft him as a key forward that switches into the ruck. I think this actually makes him a really interesting prospect for a team like Essendon. He isn't that lanky 2 meter tall. He isn't a project player. This guy is built. He is strong physically, but shows plenty across multiple positions as well. So he's versatile, which helps. The draw card really here is his ball use though. It really surprised me watching Champs footy because I hadn't really seen him before I watched the Champs Carnival, and then I saw him nailing some of these passes. There's actually a lot to like about this guy as a draft prospect, even for a team like Essendon, even if he's from WA. Another West Aussie, Aiden Riddle, slightly overaged. He was born in December of 2005, so he's technically an overager, but only by a month or two, and he's only a month or two older than some current draftees. He's currently the same age as the guys I've spoken of this video anyway, so Riddle has been on a roll in the last few years though. He's steadily improving and decreasing the list of weaknesses every year. He's just a pure ruck. He's your Todd Goldstein type, so you're not going to play him forward or back or anywhere other than the ruck. He's just a really good tap ruck, another really good ground level ruck too on ground level. He'll be much further down the order if drafted, and I reckon that comes from the fact he's mainly a tap ruck who hasn't done much in other positions, and the fact that the more versatile rucks have probably shown more in stoppages than Riddle. That hurts him. Definitely a decent later or rookie draft option though. I believe we have our first ever Tassie being mentioned in this draft video series. So Oliver Dean, his Tasmania's ruckman in 2027. I think the thing here is drafting Tassie blokes now is just developing them to be traded away in a few years, but it will give you draft picks in a few years time, so maybe worth it, maybe not, who knows. Dean is not as hyped as guys like McKercher and Sanders and whatnot. He's a developing tool though. He's 202 centimeters, muscle developing. Look, realistically, he hasn't managed heaps this year. Part of that comes from the fact that he's had some really good teammates. That never helps. And then you've got to play for Tasmania Devils in the Talent League, and that's just, well, it's not easy to get form out of, but he's shown lots of moments here and there. He was in the AFL Academy, hyped earlier in the year. This is a guy guy who could easily develop and improve in a system in a few years, and that's often how the story goes with rucks later in the draft. It's all about potential, otherwise they'd be much higher up. So it's tough to know how good Dean could be. If I had to pick any likely rookie option out of the next few guys, it's probably him. Another overager, Jordan Doherty, is currently 19, but that just means he's a tad more developed than those younger than him. He's also not really a pure ruck. I'd say he's more of a forward resting ruck, to be honest. He's 199 centimetres. He only averaged a bit over 10 hitouts a game in the Talent League and almost a goal a game. He played for Vic Country as well, so he's been on the radar of recruiters. I think the best thing about Doherty is his mobility and around the ground work. He isn't a great tap ruck. He isn't a goal-kicking forward. He's a strong mark who can win the ball on his own around the ground. He averaged almost 20 touches a game for the Stingrays in the Talent League, so not really a pure ruck or anything, not even really a pure forward. He could easily be developed as a Nick Cox multiple role type player, but Cox was a top 10 pick and hasn't put it all together, so it's really hard to know if Doherty would be able to do that, being picked up in the rookie draft likely. I really doubt he is drafted this year. It would be rookie or SSP, who knows though, crazier things have happened. Okay, we're really starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel here. Nothing against these guys, it's just their rookie draft options. I feel like the retention is going to be a lot lower in this video. Jacob Molier, not Jacob Collier, the YouTube musician, he isn't actually up for the draft this year, maybe next year, who knows. But Jacob Molier, another South Aussie. The only Victorian I've spoken of, I believe, is Doherty, to be honest, in this video. Everyone else is from other states. Molier is a ruck forward, despite being ruck-sized, but he could turn out to be like Peter Wright if drafted and plays as mainly that forward option. Although from what I've seen, he is more of that tap ruck. In fact, I think there have been some criticisms over his goal kicking, so that makes him not the best forward of options. He hasn't been able to do much in the last 2 to 3 years because of injury, but this year he played more. He had a massive growth spurt. He was apparently only 195 or 96 centimetres last year, mostly a key forward then, and then he had a huge growth spurt to be that main ruck option. His game work I'm not too familiar with, but he caught the eyes of some at the state combine running a sub 3 second 20 metre sprint. That is very good for someone over 2 metres tall. It shows he has pace and acceleration, which can also translate into agility. That's all you can really go off this early into a ruck lifespan. I'm convinced he won't be taken in the national draft, possibly rookie, but there are going to be less rookies taken this year because of all the delistings and re-rookieing going on. It's a bit annoying, but it's just how the system works. You can delist a 30-year-old and add them to the rookie list, which makes no sense. Finally, Harrison Ramm. This one's pretty interesting because you rarely see this. This is a ruckman key defender hybrid, so you do see ruckman key forwards a lot. You rarely, if ever, see ruckman key backs. It's just not really a sustainable position for game day. Ramm is yet another South Aussie, the third or fourth of the video, I've forgotten already. He played champs footy in defence, but Sandful under 18s in the ruck, I believe. This is someone who's tall enough to play ruck, but his craft isn't as developed as others, so he'll need to work on that. But he's shown he can hold down a position, or hold down opposition key forwards. This is someone you can put on a Jack Whitlock or a Tom Sims in the forward line if they're doing too much. And there are some forwards that just warrant 2-metre defenders. Their long arms are too much for the smaller ones, and Ramm is one of those defenders who can play on them. He's very fit too, 630 in the time trial. That is really promising. He's another who had a growth spurt too, by the way, so I don't know, but earlier in the year when I first noticed him, he was definitely sub 2 metres, 198 maybe, and that's a few centimetres in a year already, and he can still grow more. I think what's happened here is you have a natural key defender growing into a ruck because he's just simply becoming too tall to be a defender. That is pretty interesting, and maybe that will help him grow into a new position and become a better player. There are definitely more, there's more to this player than others I've just spoken of, but yeah, I don't know if we're going to be taking him. That is that though. Quicker video today, probably not as many views on this one I'm guessing, but had to get it out anyway. Let me know what you think down below. Would you want the club taking a ruck this year, or should we wait until Goldstein and maybe some others are gone? Also, let me know what other video ideas you have or you want from me for this draft, anything specifically you want to see. That's all for now though. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and go Bombers.